of victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Pedicini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold this.
Bit of a scuffed intro there, ladies and gentlemen, but thank you for bearing with us as I just bring around my organisation of the tabs. There we go, and then get Mary's nameplate in. There we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me to break down a big week of NRL and NRLW happenings is my good mate, Sixties, as well as our very, very good friend, Mary Kay from Ladies Who League. And given that there are a lot of ladies who are leaguing right now, never been a better time with the mug show right there. Thank you, Mary. Never been a better time to have Mary's expertise in on the tip sheet. We are very thankful that she can give us her time this week. How are you both doing before we get into the nitty-gritty, into the minutiae of what's been happening across the code?
Ladies first, Mary.
Oh, thank you, Craig. It's so great to be here. I love the TCT so much. And I think we're being pretty consistent this year in that we're only allowed one win on the weekend. So we had the men win on Friday night, and then unfortunately the women couldn't back it up on Sunday. But what a night it was on Friday night, and I can't wait to break it down with all of you.
Yeah, it couldn't have been a better night to have a watch party either, Mary. It was certainly something else there in the club on Friday night. Everyone got into the spirit of it, and it was really set up for the sort of finish that we ended up with. Just, a lot of fun. And before we go on as well, just a quick mention of Paraleagues, the home of the Eels, and thank them for their sponsorship. Also to Greg and the crew at Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, the OG sponsors of the Cumberland Throw. We should mention, John, as well, that we will be there at Parramatta Leagues Club back in Sturlows Thursday night for the preview before the big game against the Storm. Then we'll head over and watch the game after that. But we're not too sure about a special guest on Thursday night. There's one or two possibilities, but it just depends how quickly they can get from where they are and where they work and to the Leagues Club in time for our preview. But regardless, we'll be there. We'll be breaking it down. We'll be having a bit of fun as usual. And we look forward to seeing plenty of people back there in Sturlows. And John, of course, our mention, no matter what platform that you're watching this on or listening to it, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that is always much appreciated. John, I think we're probably ready to get straight into the news.
Yeah, if I had any
Hit
further
that stinger.
ado, let's get into it.
News team, assemble!
Feels like we're not too far off the Ron Burgundy news crew with one more person. I think we get the full panel crew in. And before we go any further, also thanks everyone in chat. Plenty of regulars popping off already. We'll take your questions on as always during the or pre-intermission because there is a bit of interesting discussion here. A lot of rumours swirling, of which we're going to try and cover as we can because Buzz Rothfield really teed you up, mate.
I'll tell you what, I just got absolutely smashed with messages last night.
Phone just blew up.
I was lucky that I'd watched 360 to be forewarned that a tidal wave was heading my way. I think, Mary, as you know as well, the club doesn't leak information like this anymore. It hasn't probably for a long time, but there's nothing coming out from the Eels. But there certainly were some names being bandied around on social media and even from the mainstream media. John, do you want to throw some of those names out and we'll all have a bit of a discussion about it?
Yeah, well, we had some that we mentioned in our follow-up podcast on Sunday that were linked to us in Dane Gagai and I suppose who was the other one I mentioned there? It was Dane Gagai and there was another one, but Gagai has since re-signed with the Knights, which we'll talk about in in a few minutes, I suppose, or more than a few minutes in the NRL side of things. But we had, if I'm just getting my show notes up, sorry, my phone decided to go to sleep, and now it's giving me all these notifications. We've been linked to the back row by Buzz Rothfield, which then people sort of are spinning into a number of different ways. We've had names like Jordan Ricky, Brendan Piakura come to us, Craig. That was something in the past we've had. Obviously, the one that's sort of breaking right now is Beau Fermor, another one that's been linked to us. In chat, I saw some talk about Keon Kalamatangi from, I believe it was Mike Fleet, who we caught up with at the watch party. So there's a lot of, when something like that drops on 360, Craig, suddenly the phone starts popping off and rumours start going crazy.
Yeah, there was also our former player
Trey
from the
Mooney.
Eels, Trey Mooney.
Yep.
Yeah,
Trey Mooney is another one that's been linked. Canberra Raiders telling both, again, this is sort of foreshadowing some of our NRL discussion, but Chevy Chase / Stewart, who was once probably the hottest commodity in the junior rep scene, being told by Canberra that he surplus the requirements alongside former Parramatta Eels back rower Trey Mooney. So, yeah, a lot happening.
Mary, what I'm going to ask you a two-part question.
Avril, yes.
Number one, who do you think is most likely? Number two, who would you most like to have come to the Eels?
And again, what's the qualifier on a very good back rower in your books? Because this is a very high-range sort of topic. Someone's very good back rower might be a decent back rower. And when Buzz Rothfield drops something like a very good back rower, what does he mean?
Yeah, and I was just going to say there should be, you could probably add two more names to the rumour list for feeder and also what's his name from Penrith that was former Tiger.
Luke Garner.
Luke Garner. Yeah. So Mary, again, who do you think is most likely, but who would you most like?
Tough question, 60s. I guess the first place that I'd like to start is that I'd like to sort of applaud the club for not leaking information and for not being a club that can be easily penetrated. For me, that signals really good governance. And if I compare us to other clubs like the West Tigers, where they are leaking like a sieve, it's very, very difficult for the club to be able to have tough conversations if they can't keep things secret. So I'll start there, which is really, really positive. John, you pose, I think, the most interesting question of all, which is what is a very, very good, very good player? There are some players on that list that I probably wouldn't put into that category. I wonder who's most likely. Perhaps Keon Kalamatangi. It wouldn't be a huge move for him, I think, given that some of the other players we've been linked to are Canberra-based or, say, Titans-based. The other name that I'll throw out that maybe is a bit of a pipe dream on my behalf is I would love Tino Fasiwa-Malaawi. I think that would be a wonderful signing for us. I also wouldn't say no to a David Fifita. I think his potential is significant, and I think it's sort of unfortunate the way things have played out on the Gold Coast. I don't think the Gold Coast Titans are a club you go to if you really want to say push your NRL career and be challenged. I think it's a club where you can go, get your money, cruise a little bit and fly under the radar. But if David's looking to do a little bit more in his career, I think he could do a lot worse than come to Parramatta. And a coach like Jason Ryles, who has signalled his intent to really focus on youth and developing them.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with a lot of what you say there, Mary, because when I've seen the list that people have put forward, Keon Kalamatangi, he ticks a lot of boxes in a person who would be most likely. And a few people have been messaging me with other details about why it's most likely going to be him. And you start to put a couple of pieces together and you go, he might be sitting at the top of the list in terms of the most likely. He would be a player that I would be quite keen for the Eels to secure as
he's
well.
Your best bet as a, it's not a disservice to Keon, who was a phenomenal player. He's like your knockoff version of Tino, I suppose, in some capacity.
Yeah.
Like he's like you're settling for the second option there, but it's a pretty good settle. You're not losing out too much.
And I almost say, why not both?
Well,
because
Porcino lost
Tino,
us indeed.
Why not? Yeah.
yeah, Tino could probably play that. Would probably be maybe just as well known, if not more well known, as a middle now. Although he had that edge background as well, so he would be on the wish list for me as another pickup. If we got either him or Keon, I'd probably start dancing around the block at the moment. So, and I say the block, not the room. I'd actually go for a trot around the block.
And I'd come to see it. I'd come to see it and clap you along. I might, you know what? I'll join the conga line. John, will we see you there too?
Well, maybe we're right. We just start a conga line around Combank Stadium when it happens. We'll just organise it. We'll put it out there, and I'm sure we get lots of takers as well that would dance around with us. Yeah, a lot of those other ones, for the very same reason as well that you say, Mary, are they the very, very good back rower? And there's a couple there that I don't think I'd put into that category. And I'm not casting aspersions on them. I just think, are they a player who, as a very, very good player, would move the needle for Parramatta? And that's really the point I think that would have to be made, because I think the back rowers that the Eels have at the moment are good. So, and I don't think a couple of those other players are necessarily markedly better than the current Eels staff in that position. So, yeah, but the two I think we've mentioned so far, they would fit the bill. John, have you got any different thoughts?
I'm just looking at chat's response, and they're sort of offering a few more players that we've been linked to in some capacity. Chris is saying that players that have been mentioned at least in passing or more: Tyson Frizzell, Angus Crichton, Beau Fermor, David Fafita, Ken Koloamatangi, Kurt Capewell. I see Sua Wong. I think Gallagher, was that you that had him there? Ray Stone, going back a few live streams with some talk about him being maybe squeezed out of the Dolphins. Probably not the same sort of profile as Keon or Tino, but geez, it'd be hard not to say hello or welcome back to Stoney.
Go
easy on him, John. He died a hero for us.
Seriously, a blaze of glory for us back in 22, winning that game against Melbourne. But look, I would be very, very open to a Ken Koloamatangi pickup. His ability to play edge or lock forward, or essentially prop forward these days as well, given he's got the bigger frame, is very valuable. He's definitely entering his prime. I suppose he's not a free agent for next year. He's eligible to be negotiated with as of November, off contract end of 26, but that doesn't mean too much these days, as we always talk about. I'll be very happy to him. I mean, Angus Crichton, guys, is very good. Would he be squeezed out by the Roosters? He's also not young either, is he? Because I feel like, he's still playing great football, don't get me wrong. Crichton, he's turning 30 in February, so you could still get a couple of good years out of him. I wouldn't say no to that, but yeah, I think that if you're talking about genuine tier ones, Keon and obviously Tino, David Fafita I am intrigued by because of what Jason Ryles and his coaching staff have been able to extract from other raw, and look, David's less raw than someone like Gideon, but there's no doubt that, as you said, Mary, has not realised his potential. He's been stuck in the mud up in the Gold Coast for a number of years, and both parties have been seeming to be wallowing in just keeping him there and not necessarily letting him become the best player he can be. So yeah, I think that they're probably the most intriguing ones. I think there's plenty of value you could get elsewhere too, though. So whichever way it goes, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens here with what Jason Ryles does, because he hasn't really missed so far. It's only been one recruitment class, but there's been a lot of big hits. He certainly seems to have a profile that looks for based on the different positions. And you look at someone like Kidione, that would say that David Fafita is definitely in play. Very similar athletic profiles there, more nuggety, explosive back rowers, but who knows what else that means. I mean, if that rumour about Keon is on point, I'd be very, very happy.
Yeah, players like him and Tino become game changers.
Yeah, they are the pieces that will elevate the rest of the forward pack, the rest of the team, absolutely. And this is what we talked about, using the free agency to go out and find that elite player, like playmaker, not as a 1, 6, 7 or 9, but as like, you know, a big piece to elevate the rest of the team.
Yeah. John, the next thing that we're going to talk about, actually, I feel strange talking about it because in my column last week, I mentioned this player as someone to watch moving forward that had a future at the club. And lo and behold, within 24 hours, he signed a contract to go elsewhere.
Remember when we banned you from talking about players in the past because of bad things?
Yes. Unfortunately, that's the case. So we're talking about it now because it's a little bit more known. We don't like to drop things out there that we're privy to, but we've now seen that Matty Hunter has been dropped back from New South Wales Cup to Flegg, and Lorenzo Talatina has been moved from Flegg up to New South Wales Cup, which basically is as a result, you would say, that Matty Hunter signed a 3-year deal with the Newcastle Knights. The Eels were keen to keep him, and but the Knights came in with a bigger offer. And given that there are other players within the Eels system that are young players moving up that the Eels have targeted, it's hard to argue with them not fighting too much or not matching what was apparently a pretty good offer from the Knights to Matty. He's a good young bloke, good player. We wish him all the best. And I know a lot of supporters were enjoying watching him play and what he was doing in New South Wales Cup since he'd been elevated. I guess the benefit for the Flegg team now is they get the fella who was their captain back. So, bit of sad news that he's moved on.
I mean, it is bittersweet because I am chuffed for him to be able to spin a breakout year across the Flegg in the New South Wales Cup into a really good deal at Newcastle that gives him a great chance at progressing his career. Who knows? Maybe the Newcastle Knights have an all Parramatta halves pairing in a year or two. Yeah,
could be. And once you start, well, you've got both the Matt and Jake Arthur there as well. So they're probably going for the spine to be all Parramatta.
There you go. They got the 6, 7, 9 all covered from Blue and Gold. And I really wish Matty the best of luck. He's had a fantastic year. Been, like I said, a real breakout prospect for the Parramatta Eels. And there's no doubt he would have been happy to stay at Parramatta. But when you get that kind of offer that gives you the best chance of having a career, and you look at, you mentioned it, Craig, but you look at the competition that he's going to have around him too. I think that it was a pretty easy laydown was there for him to take that deal. So well done, Matty, and good luck, mate.
Yeah, I totally agree with you both. You two are better across the juniors than I am. If they're going after our spine, just hands off Yongi. I'm just going to state that nice and clearly. But additionally, I know that Jason Ryles has taken a really keen interest in the pathways and is very, very focused on not just first grade, but making sure that all the grades are aligned and that there's a clear path for our players. And I know that we've made a lot of signings in our junior bases. So I'm really happy about that. And I also just wish Matty the best of luck. It's unfortunate that we can't keep them all.
And that is the case as well, that there's so many of the young ones that are coming through. 360 and Triple M have been talking about the Parramatta pathways lately and about the rich depth of players that are coming through. So it gets harder. It gets harder and harder to keep them.
That's something we've stressed, is that there is no way you keep every single prospect coming through from this SG Ball and Jersey Flegg group. What's going to be the real challenge is keeping as many of the right ones as you can. And there's no doubt that a club or two are going to get under our guard and say, look at what you're facing here in terms of competition. You might as well come with us. And they might end up being the right person to poach. Matty Hunter might go on and have a fantastic NRL career, and I certainly hope he does. But the club is hedging against prospects like Lorenzo Talatina, Lincoln Fletcher, maybe Talon Rosati further down the pipeline as well. And that's just a part of the game, isn't it? Is making sure you give yourself the best possible chance. And you're going to lose some, but you got to have as many bites of the cherry with the good prospects as you can. And as far as we know so far, club doing a great job in terms of locking up those prospects.
I wanted to throw the next topic. This was something that was sent to me by one of our readers, Luke, and it's speaks to what you were talking about earlier, John, about Jason Ryles getting things right this year with recruitment. And obviously we need to give credit to the Eels recruitment team as well in securing the players. But in this instance, Luke was talking about Dean Hawkins, and he compared Dean Hawkins to the big name recruit at the Tigers, Jahrome Hughes, and was saying how much better Hawkins has actually performed this year. Now, he's grabbed some stats which are floating around comparing the two, and this is the rundown. So Hughes played 16 games, Dean Hawkins 10. Hughes 0 tries, and Dean Hawkins 2. Hughes 7 try assists, Dean Hawkins 8. The total kicks, well, it's obviously more for Hughes because he's had that many more games. But it was interesting to see that, because I think actually just looking at the total kicks, they might even be slightly favouring Hawkins on a per game basis, just looking at them, because they've both got over 4,000 kick meters in their kicks. So it's interesting that one is sort of like the marquee recruit, and his team for the majority of the season has sat above the Eels on the table, and he's had more games than Dean Hawkins, and yet Dean Hawkins has arguably pulled up better stats than what he has in a team which has clearly struggled to get the wins up to now. So, Mary, what do you think about the job that Dean Hawkins has done so far this year?
Look, it's a great point you raise, and I love the stats that you've included there. I guess when I think about Jahrome Hughes, he's a player that is a marquee player that's gone to the Tigers. And I think it's fair to say that the Tigers season has been quite unstable. If I think about the number of curveballs that have been thrown at that team this year, questioning the coach, the Lockie Galvin situation, and the number of halves partners that Jahrome Hughes has had, I would certainly say that Dean Hawkins is better value. Dean Hawkins is not a marquee player. I think he's been doing his job extremely well. And I remember that win we had earlier in the year. I can't remember who it was against. We haven't had many wins. I should remember them all. But he seemed to just slot into the systems that Jason Ryles was instituting, which I really appreciated.
Manly, maybe?
I think he'll benefit tremendously. Maybe that was
he had a barnstormer against Manly, so maybe that was the one.
Yeah, it was a real breakout game.
Yeah. And I think will benefit tremendously from playing under Mitch Moses. And then I think he's also got the benefit of being part of a reasonably stable team. I know we're sitting towards the bottom of the ladder, but I think given it's Jason Ryles' first year, he's the one that's been making the tough calls, and the team seems to really be enjoying each other's company and sort of buying into the processes that Jason Ryles has set up. So I think he's also benefited from potentially less instability than what Jahrome Hughes has had.
And Mary, you and I know that some of these players that have been brought into the club, they came in knowing that there was a role that they would have for the year. Dean Hawkins came in, and he's under no illusions. He's a halfback. Mitch Moses is a halfback. If he goes to the 5'8", there's Dylan Brown sitting in front of him. So he knew that his time in first grade was going to be whenever either of those two players weren't there. And a player like him will come in knowing that that's the projection, and anything that they achieve beyond that, well, it's probably going to be due to circumstance more than anything else. But he hasn't played like that. He's played like a bloke who has some self-belief, and I guess living up to his nickname of Footy Dean.
Well,
absolutely.
He's graduated and is now the Dean of Football. But look,
I like that a lot.
It's about, this is an important reminder about the idea, or it's a very basic concept, but the importance, I suppose, of positional fits when it comes to recruitment and retention. The Parramatta Eels went out and saw Dean Hawkins as their ideal for a backup halfback to Mitchell Moses, a guy that can be a halfback, as we really stress on the halfback part of it. The Tigers took a big gamble. and went and signed a 5'8" to play halfback for them. And Jahrome, there is no doubt that Jahrome Luai is a star. I mean, I ate a lot of crow last year and gave him his deserved dues for the form he displayed, not just for Penrith, but for New South Wales throughout the course of the entire year. He was awesome. But he was playing, and I know Cleary was out, but they had other players help fill that gap. He was playing 5'8". And that is really where his strengths lie. He's a run first half, really eyes up, heads up sort of player that can deviate out of structure with great ease. But the Tigers are asking him to be the halfback, and that is a completely different kettle of fish for him, and he's obviously struggled. So I think that is more a compliment to Dean Hawkins than it is a put down on Jahrome Luai, as much as I don't mind having a dig at Jahrome because he doesn't mind having a bit of banter, telling people they've got to go to work and whatnot. But yeah, I think that there is a different situation with if the Tigers are able to find a halfback, or if the Latu Fainu ends up being the halfback, which again, I think his skill set translates more to a 5'8" than a halfback, but maybe he can develop in that regard. But the Tigers certainly haven't been giving him the means to prosper. So, like I said, it is really a compliment to Dean Hawkins and his ability to elevate himself under Jason Ryles and the rest of the coaching staff more than it is a slight on Jahrome Luai, although it is a very fun stat.
And you, as you rightly say, John, last year, some of us did have to eat a bit of humble pie with the criticism that we were throwing at Jahrome Luai in the years previous, because he stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, he didn't just coast on the rest of the Penrith team. He absolutely played great football. Yeah.
And he did combine with Mitch Moses in Origin last year.
Yeah, they are a sensational pairing. I do think there was a bit of a faux pas committed there by the selectors this year, but Nathan Cleary was always going to get his chance, which is just how the cookie crumbles. But when you saw what those two did last year, it is kind of outrageous that they weren't given the first crack, but that's how it goes.
Now, Mary, the next topic for discussion in a full program of things to talk about this week is this increased respect for Jason Ryles. Now, I want to throw to you, first of all, because you've had a little bit of behind-the-scenes knowledge about what he's been working towards. You've had an opportunity to speak to Jason. We've seen the season unfold. It's probably, when we've had some of the commentators suggest that he should be in running for Coach of the Year. Maybe that's a stretch given where Parramatta's sitting, but I think it's been worthy of as a discussion point to acknowledge what Jason Ryles has done this year. So what is your takes on what this season has been from in terms of what Jason Ryles has done for the Eels?
I think he's done a great job, Craig. And if I reflect on sort of where I was as a fan last year, I thought that Brad Arthur's time with the club was coming to an end, but I was really, really devastated with the way it all came about. There was the conversation about Wayne Bennett. We missed out on Wayne Bennett, and actually I'm probably pretty glad that we did. And then we went on an extensive search and found Jason Ryles. I think as fans, we are very emotional about our team. And what I've really appreciated about Jason Ryles this year is his willingness to make some really tough decisions. I think about the decision around Gutho last year. And just to be clear, that was Clint and the club coming up with an arrangement and deciding that it was, in Clint's best interest to move on. And that was Clint's decision. But Jason Ryles was willing to make a tough call and suggest that Clint play a different role. And I know for a lot of fans that was hard to take. And I know it's been hard to take watching a lot of our players leave. But I've really appreciated how Jason Ryles has stuck to his guns. He's clearly had a plan. I love how focused he is on the next generation of players. Riley Smith is really one of my favourite players. And if I think about the conversation at hooker that we were having last year, I mean, I know he wasn't with us, but his name wasn't even coming up. I wouldn't have thought that Riley Smith would be our starting hooker this year and that he would be one of our, I think, standout performers for the year. I love the development of some of our other players. We've already spoken about Kirioni Katonga, the likes of Isaiah Yongi. I think Sean Russell is having a standout season.
Career best season.
So
for sure.
even though, Yeah, even though we are sitting towards the bottom of the ladder, I've been really proud of our efforts in a lot of games. We've had a lot of injuries that I think we've navigated well, but the players most of all seem to be happy and buying into the systems and processes that Jason Ryles has set up. And if I look about around that cluster of teams that sits around us, I think the team I'd like to be the most is Parramatta.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point that you made to round off your view there, Mary, is that a lot of other pundits as well are starting to say, you know what, if there's a club that we can see is going to improve, it's going to be the Eels. I've liked the coaching team that has been assembled with Jason as well. Nathan Brown, John and I were fortunate to get to know Nathan Brown when he was in the pathways role.
Capacity that Steve Georgialis has right now, the elite director,
and
pathways director.
Yeah, and he's an interesting character, Nathan. He's very laid back, and at the same time calls a spade as well, which I think if you're a coach, you have to be able to do that. So,
and that's certainly something that's been communicated to us, is that a lot of the young players respected how he communicated frank messages with them in regards to their development.
Yeah.
So,
and also you can see that he really enjoys his football. Like he's a bloke that it's like, this is what I like. It's literally every time you see him, it's like, you must really love your job, because we can see it. Like there's no other way of interpreting it, that he loves what he's doing. Scott Wisemantle, quite a cerebral coach as well, and a good, I think on that level as well, because I think Jason Ryles is I would also call him a cerebral coach. He's won. What's the term for people who self-educate? An autodidact? Is that the term? I think that's the official term for people who will self-educate, who will learn about things.
Yeah, you're right. It's autodidactism. Yeah.
Yes. So I think Jason is a real autodidact. Like he just sets about learning about a range of things, and I'll come to that in a sec. Scott Wisemantle, because he's been around in union and league, and he just quietly goes about his business. But I would put down Sean Russell and his season that he's having and the improvement that he's had directly to Scott Wisemantle, because I see him spending a lot of time with Scott at training, and the skills work that he does with the backs, it's brilliant. And of course, Sam Moa with Jason and what they've been trying to establish with the Eels defence. And yeah, we will see those score lines that sometimes get away from the Eels, but we're not seeing the structures fall apart like we used to before. We can watch the Eels defend on the line and have an element of confidence that they're going to repel a team for multiple sets even. And it's only been where it seems like we've really been burdened with asking to do a lot more work, maybe off some unfair calls at times, that something goes wrong.
And what's been really pleasing is that by and large, and it's certainly not without its own lapses, but if you watch the actual system of the defence, a lot of times when the Eels have failed, it's been the failure of the individual rather than the failure of the system, where we've been posted up in 2-on-2s or 3-on-3s, or the ruck has had correct alignment, but someone has been beaten because of footwork from another player, or an incorrect read from one of our wingers, for instance, when we've been talking about those jamming issues. Like I said, by and large, the lion's share of the data is saying that we are in good positions in defence, which is very good, because that just means you've got to tidy up your dot your I's, cross your T's, rather than having to strategically overhaul everything and re-educate everyone and implement those new structures.
Yeah, so right at the start of the year in the pre-season, you could see that everything was going to be different for the Eels and the way they went about preparing for the season. You could see the way that individual training sessions were set up. You could see the scaffolded learning that would happen from the start of the field session to the end of it. And then you'd see how it would build across the week. Then you'd see how it would build across multiple weeks. So it was Jason Ryles created a learning environment there. And he and the coaches also made it fun. And at the same time, all that conditioning work that was happening, it was a lot of it was in the form of games. So everything was kept fresh. I should mention as well that unfortunately, Blair Mills, who is the head of athletic performance at the Eels, I believe he's going to move back to New Zealand. So the Eels will be replacing him in that head of athletic performance position. But he also deserves a lot of credit for the change that we've seen, certainly in the shape of a lot of the Eels players this year as well. So just getting back to Jason Ryles, the other thing, Mary, that really has impressed me is the way that he's not just not adopted, but he's embraced the Parramatta history and culture and tradition, but he's also establishing a stronger culture and a stronger identity. And a big part of that has been embracing the fans and the passion of the fans. And I don't think we could ask for more of what he's done in that respect.
I couldn't agree more, Sixties, truly. And I think there's been a complete 360 when we see the way the club is engaging with fans, particularly the way players are engaging with fans. It's a great point you raise. And I think the other thing that I love about him, and John will let you get in on the Jason Ryles love fest in a second, is I love his demeanour in press conferences. I really do. He's never blamed the refs. He always looks at us first. I recall that moment when Junior Barlow was talking about Footy Dean and he had a bit of a laugh. He also got Junior Barlow confused with another player. They had a bit of a laugh. I've just really appreciated his press conferences. Yeah, that's it. It was really great.
Junior's little hush whisper, "You're giving away our game plan, coach."
I loved it. I really did. And I love the handprints that are always on the coach's box now. I feel like I'd be doing that if
second
I was
Zach Extra gets up, just banging the window.
Yeah. It's when you see a coach who looks like he's so totally invested, and I guess you have to give coaches like Bellamy and Ricky Stewart their dues because they're passionate about the club that they're coaching, respectively, the clubs they're coaching. And now that we're seeing Jason Ryles wearing his heart on his sleeve in moments like that up in the coach's box, but we also know that it's not just about the passion with him. It's about he has a belief in the path that he wants to take this team, and he's prepared to stick to his guns, even if it doesn't look obvious to us that something is the right thing to do. Like it would take, I think it would have either taken a bold person or someone that just was not a Dylan Brown fan to say, don't pick him for the rest of the year. And
it's almost unprecedented in terms of NRL coaches, let alone rookie coaches, to make such a bold and pragmatic call. And yes, it's one that has divided the fan base, and it's one that's led to a lot of interesting debates here on this actual show. But I haven't seen a rookie coach be a man of such conviction, I suppose, perhaps ever. He has a plan, and he is going to see that plan through. And that's not to say that other rookie coaches haven't had great results and been incredibly successful and gone on to even win premierships. It's just that I haven't seen a rookie coach step into a situation like Parramatta's, which is not an easy one, and just absolutely stick to their guns and move on. Not just players that are old, but players that still have some value left in them, like Quentin Gufferson, that are heart and soul of the team, but be justified and have such a great plan of succession in such a short time frame. Like, to move on Gufferson and have Iongi be unearthed in the same breath is a huge tick in favour of Jason Ryles. So doing a lot right.
Yeah. It's I think he's probably, as a coach, he's got the acknowledgement of the majority of fans. Even if there's fans that haven't liked every single decision that he's made, I think he's earned a lot of respect from the Eels fans about the way he's gone about his business. Yep. And about just, as I said, sticking to his guns. And yet at the same time, producing the type of football that he wants the Eels to play, where it's a bit unorthodox. Like it really is quite unorthodox. It's he may just end up producing the sort of football that other coaches might copy.
Well, yeah, oftentimes, and that's been something we've talked about in the past, is how much you want to be chasing the meta game in the NRL versus trying to zag where everyone else is zigging. And he is zagging pretty hard right now. And like you said, he might be the person that is going to set the trend on the basis of his, both the defensive structures and more so the aggressive, expansive attacking play.
Look, I think that's the case, John. Now, I'm going to throw to you for Team List Tuesday.
Yep.
And I want to sort of push through some parts of this, because if we've got no changes, I don't know.
There's only so much you can talk about. Exactly.
Dive too deep.
Exactly.
But anyway, I'll throw it to you, and we'll sit back as you zigzag your way through the team lists.
Yes, we start with the NRL as the Parramatta Eels host the Melbourne Storm on Thursday night out at CommBank Stadium. Massive game, obviously, in the Parramatta Eels coming off their huge upset 2-point win against the Brisbane Broncos. Jason Ryles, as you alluded to, 60s, no surprises, an unchanged top 17. That means it looks like this. Joash Papali at fullback, Zach Lomax on the right wing with Will Penasini at right centre. Sean Russell and the Fox, Josh Adokar, work together on the left. Dean Hawkins will partner Mitchell Moses in 6 and 7 respectively. Front row, it's Jermaine Propgood alongside Junior Barlaw and Riley Smith. Charlie Geimer and Jack Williams are your starting edges with Dylan Walker at lock forward. Then on the interchange, Talon De Silva, Luca Moretti, Matt Dury and Sam Tuavaiti, with the extended roster featuring a number of big names actually. Jordan Samrani, Kelma Tuolangi, who returns from suspension but will come back via the New South Wales Cup. He's also playing in that grade alongside Bowie Simonson, who had the week off last week by virtue of being surplus to NRL requirements but no Cup in action. And finally, Tony Mattielli and Dylan Brown continuing to float in that 22 jersey for the Parramatta Eels. So, yeah, not too much to talk about there. I suppose on the other side of the docket, guys, Melbourne Storm got some ins and outs. Obviously, Jahrome Hughes, who we're going to talk about in the NRL news, he is out, being replaced by Tyron Wishart at halfback. Dummy half is the ever-dangerous Harry Grant. But the Storm also have out Trent Loiero, but they do get back a couple of guns in Ryan Pappenhausen and Cameron Munster. So that Parramatta trend of getting the guns back, it never stops. And yeah, Ryan Pappenhausen, not on the run sheet 60s, but another big name in the news because he's been talking to Rugby 360, that startup rugby franchise. So something to monitor there. But that is how they
who are these players? You said Pappenhausen and Munster.
Yeah, a couple of chumps, I mean, they
never heard of them.
Sure, they couldn't improve the Melbourne Storm. Surely. Classic Parramatta way there. So, look, I don't think there's too much drama in Kelma Tuolangi coming back via reserve grade, is there, guys? Charlie Geimer, Jack Williams doing a fantastic job. Jermaine Hopgood having really elevated his game in the last fortnight. I looked at in the vacuum, Geimer and Hopgood probably the two most likely candidates to maybe make way for Kelma, but neither of them have played bad football, and you don't change a winning formula like that. So that's the.
And what do you always say, John, about ability?
Yep, your best ability is availability. And Kelma, look, maybe he copped the dud deal, but he's been unavailable for 3 weeks, and that's allowed Charlie Geimer to Wally Pip him, baseball term there at first base. But, Charlie doing a great job on that right edge. And Jack Williams, well, he's been a fantastic pickup in general. So I don't think Coach Ryles has had any reason to move either of those players on, and Kelma will have to do some hard work in Reggie's to fight his way back in.
Yes, and now we go to the NRLW. And we do have a big in this week. Again, we had to keep the lips sealed last week because a certain person, the person named, did let me know that she was back this week.
Yes, I think she said on a talk show she'll be back within 1 to 2 weeks. So she gave you the good goss and sent some misdirection to the public. But yeah, the NRLW do welcome back one of their absolute guns in Kennedy Charrington. Although Steve Georgialis is going to ease her back into the fray, she comes into the team by way of the interchange bench. And she is the sole change this week, if I'm not mistaken, which means the Eels look like this. Abby Church at fullback. You got Zoe Fay and Martha Mattelli on the wings. Rory Owen and Lindsay Tui are your young centre pairing. In the halves, it is Cassie Toei Hiku and Rachel Pearson. Elsie Albert, Ruben Charrington, Kennedy's younger sister, is a dummy half. And Brianna Eels, the other prop forward. Chloe Jackson, Mahalia Murphy, the captain on the edges. Young gun Rivoli, Arlo lock forward. Then the interchange, joining Kennedy, is Tanika Todd-Hunter, Paige Travis, and Fleur Ginn. Extend the roster, Tess McWilliams, Ruby Jean Kennard-Ellis, Rosemary Beckett, Yasmin Baker, and Tyler Amiatu, Craig. And I was just waiting to see if the Clouds put out an injury report. Is Tyler back, or is she just being named? You got to think if she's being named, she's back. Have they put out the injury reports yet? They have. Injury report says Tyler is not on there. So Boss Kapua has been pushed back to round 8. Mia Middleton and Rashay Farmasui TBA for facial and neck injuries, respectively. But it looks like Tyler is back. And do I have a... Yes, we do. But she hasn't been named in Harvey Norman's. So I don't know if she'll be a late inclusion on either team, but definitely something to consider there.
Mary, does it surprise you that the only change is Kennedy coming in after the result last week?
I don't think so, Craig. I think the NRLW team is in an interesting spot this year. I said at the start of the year that I thought not making finals would potentially be a failure. And I still stand by that, to be perfectly honest. I still think this is a team that can play finals. I think what I really noticed on the weekend, and I've sort of noticed it in a couple of games, is that our attackers looked a little bit clunky. And I absolutely adore Rachel Pearson. I love her. I think she's fantastic. And I really reflect on that first game she had against the Cronulla Sharks. But I thought her kicking game was slightly off on the weekend. And I thought in particular, Beau Welsh was finding those kicks on the full and just making too many meters.
Big inroads, yep.
And I think that was a real problem for the Eels on the weekend. And I sort of compare it to Jessie Southwell's kicking game, who seemed to find the grass every time she kicked the ball. This is still a young team. There's a lot of inexperience there, but I'm really pleased with some of the signs that we're seeing. I've loved watching Martha Mattelli, and I think she's only going to get better. And I've also loved watching Rivoli Arlo. She is so young and has so much potential. And I think this week is a really good opportunity for the Eels to bounce back against the Dragons team, who was also probably put in their place a little bit last weekend with a heavy loss. So a good opportunity to bounce back, I think.
Good news
and they've
is...
lost a key player too, haven't they, John?
Yes. At fullback, they have lost their absolute star, Tegan Berry. I'm not sure how long she's out of action for. Is it 2 to 3 weeks maybe? But picked up an injury last week and has been replaced by Tyra Ekapati. So that is a big out for the Red V. We take whatever we can get right now. But the good news is it's odd week Eels. So rounds 1 and 3 were wins. Rounds 2 and 4 were losses. We head into round 5. The form line says that we probably should be winning. So this one will be, we didn't mention it, but it is Sunday 3:45 as part of Magic Round at McDonald Jones. So is that the final game of Magic Round? I believe it is.
It sure is.
Yeah, Eels on the closing chapter there. It's a home game away from home, unfortunately, but that's how Magic Round works. Every other year you get the home game taken away from you. Quick thoughts, guys. Fleur Ginn over Tess McWilliams as the final piece in the bench with Kennedy Charrington coming into the team. Was that the right call? Would you have preferred to have the extra forward, or do you like Fleur getting the chance to be the second utility on the interchange? I'm kind of of the opinion that I'd like to see Fleur get more minutes in HNWP maybe, but Tess McWilliams could probably feel pretty hard done by. She's had a great opening couple of games in the campaign. She'll be back sooner rather than later though. But yeah, right call.
John,
young player, I think, John, as well. So I wonder whether there's a little bit of management. I mean, they're both young players. Do you know what I mean? But Tess has certainly
Tess
played
take
more
on the
minutes.
heavier workload of the two. Yeah.
So I wonder if that's got something to do with it. And I also wonder maybe whether because of the Dragons are quite a fast team, that's why we're opting for Fleur.
Yeah, that's fair points.
And also Rory Owen came off the field with
maybe not 100%. So you want that coverage on the bench? Yeah, I absolutely buy into those reasons. Yeah, Alex Wallace in chat saying the same thing. How's Rory Owen's knee? Evidently, it's been good enough to name her, but that could still be subject to change ahead of kickoff, right? If you've got Fleur there, you could always put her into the centres or reshuffle the back line in some capacity and then bring Tess McWilliams or Tyler Amiatu onto the interchange, I guess.
Yeah, look, I agree with what Mary said too about the team. There was a vast difference in the kicking games, and it's interesting watching Rachel because there are weeks where she absolutely just nails every kick, and then there are weeks like that one that we just had where it's like she doesn't quite strike the ball exactly as she wants to, and without doubt, Beau Walsh played one of the better games that I've seen her play, certainly better than anything she delivered for the Tigers, and is probably just the sort of fullback that the Knights need to replace Tamika Upton, because Upton was like, we're talking superstar there, and when combined with Southwell, it made the Knights so formidable and obviously was instrumental in getting premierships. I thought it was a real lesson delivered to the Eels last week, because that clunkiness in attack, it hasn't really disappeared this year. It was, maybe you could argue that in the game against the Raiders.
Against Canberra, they're definitely more fluent, but they certainly haven't peaked and been firing all cylinders. And
the Raiders as well, like if we're honest, the Raiders are definitely the weakest team in the competition. We certainly right scored those points, but the Raiders are struggling.
And the other thing that we mentioned, Craig, is that Eric Twitter has not been a happy hunting ground for our girls. For whatever reason. But just like it could be nothing.
Home hasn't been a happy hunting ground, John.
No, they've been very good on the road, not so much at home, which is always one of those weird sort of stat splits. But Christian Chat making a great point too. Tess, if she's going to play Harvey non-women's premiership finals at some point, there is a minimum game threshold. So if you want to play like that to be part of the finals, she has to play, I don't know, whether it's 4 or 5 games across the course of the season. But yeah, it's something to consider there too.
And also just on the home games, that really comes down to, I think, the fact that if you play at different venues, do you have a true home?
Yeah. Well, we've made this point for the West Tigers, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're getting each year, 1 or 2 games at Combank, or 1 or 2 games at Eric Tweedle, and then the rest of them all over the place. I don't think we've actually found a home as such that we would walk out there and go, no, okay, this is our home, this is our place. That should be Combank Stadium, but scheduling being what it is,
exactly. And
it's and you're probably not going to open. There will be very few times where you will open a stadium of Combank size to a crowd that might be 2,000.
No,
something like that. So there's logistical realities around that. Maybe it should be Kellyville.
That, Craig, like maybe the COE. That's where they train. That's where their lockers are. That's home. Do you know what I mean? And we can get into the scheduling conversation. The reality is, when there are double headers, people really aren't showing up. And I think the women's game deserves better. I think it's only going to get harder. I mean, I was thinking about Magic Round this weekend. The NRL will want people to go. Does that mean that people won't go to men's games? Do you know what I mean? People will need to make a choice about where they are this weekend.
Yeah, and it's true. It does honestly come down to that sort of scheduling. And I think in creating a Magic Round for the women, they are asking people to not watch the men's at the same time.
Exactly. The schedule conflicts are just ridiculous, and
it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It really does.
So you're cannibalizing your own audience.
Exactly.
Right? Like if Parramatta were playing in the men on the Sunday and the women in Newcastle, like on the Sunday, you can't go to both. You have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And the HNWP has been a real victim of that too. That their schedule has been really brutal, conflicting with a number of, not to say higher priority, but more established grades in the code. And quick question for you before we move on from Fletcher Johnson, Mary, I'll send it to you. What do you reckon is a workload for Kennedy this week, coming off the interchange bench position?
I think I'm really looking to Steve Georgalis to manage Kennedy because I love Kennedy and she's going to bring so much
Her own worst
energy
enemy will
back.
be Kennedy, though. She's going to be a
But
lunatic.
Kennedy will
Yeah.
want to be on the field. She'll
Yeah.
be chomping at the bit. If you put her on, she won't want to come off.
Yep.
So I think it'll be really important for the coaching staff to manage her. But I think just having Kennedy there, even on the bench and for limited time on the field, will do heaps for the women on the field. Sort of seeing her a little bit. Maybe actually Josh Adokar mimics her. Do you know what I mean? Just the energy that he brings and the energy that she brings. I know Kennedy's going to lift them.
And Christian chat saying that all the games have been moved to Kellyville this week, which is a good response to what we've been criticising about being sort of spread across the wider Sydney district. So yeah, it is nice to have. It's across Saturday and Sunday, but it is nice to have all the games out of Kellyville for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. John, that now brings us to a very interesting New South Wales Cup team list.
Yeah, we tipped some of it already with the Lorenzo news and then also Kelma Tuolangi and Bowie Simonson, but it is Cup's best team for some considerable time now. At fullback, Upper Twiddle leading the young brigade there, but Jake Tungor and Hayes Dunster on the wings, Richard Penasini and Bowie Simonson in the centres. Lorenzo Tawatana makes his senior football debut in the number 6. He partners Ronald Volkman as a part of a very talented and fascinating halves pairing there. Front row, a bit of experience with Woody Gregg, Joey Lussick and Tony Mattielli. Jordan Samrani and Kelma Tuolangi are on the edges. Dan Keir at lock forward this week. Then on the interchange, it's Manny Luke as the dummy half utility. Brock Parker and Saxon Pryke are your reserve middles, and then Tyrese Lakini, the final young gun in the team, being the back row option off the interchange. So it's a very good-looking team there. Not quite full strength still. There's a couple of players out at the NRL level and a couple of players out at the Cup level, like Will Latu and whatnot, that it probably would be in serious consideration for selection. But that is a very, very good team taking on South Sydney, who are coming out of that global bye after being absolutely towed up by the outstanding New Zealand Warriors 68-6. So big game here with Parramatta Eels. Yeah, that Warriors team's won 14 in a row. They're pretty handy. But yes, good team for the Parramatta Eels, no doubt.
Yeah, look, the Eels went with the Warriors for a large part of their game only recently, and not only that, the Eels were really down in troops against the Warriors, and I thought it was a pretty decent effort when they fell just a few weeks ago. So we're still seeing that vision for the future with the team that's been named. I'm really curious about how Lorenzo will go at 5'8". I think it's a massive ask because for mine, he's still finding his feet at flag level, if I'm going to be brutally honest. And I would suggest that he and Ronald Volkman aren't too dissimilar in playing styles. It'll be an interesting combination, seeing, because I don't think either of them is a halfback. I think you've got 2 5'8s playing together in that one. So yeah, that'll be interesting. John, we've just had the Harvey Norman team go back to back with wins. Is that then reflected in minimal team change this week?
Correct. Yeah, not too many changes this week. We've got Ella Carlisle at fullback, Paige Knapp and Caitlin Pearden on the wings, which I believe helps round out an unchanged back 5 with Josephine Lenars and Kiana Takarangi rounding it out. Elias Sufan partners Rosemary Beckett in the halves. Was that a change from last week? I'm not sure because we have seen, her name slips my head. Where's my Excel sheet here? No, it's not there either. I apologise. Where is the team? There it is. We've seen Matisse Bettridge. That's who it was, partnering Aaliyah prior to the other games this season. But Rosemary Beckett now healthy, working in the halves. Ruby Jean Kinnard-Ellis, Chelsea Makira and Taylor Falanico, the front rowers. Jess Kennedy, Fontaine Tafua and Ashley Pottinger in the back row. Ava Jones, Kylie Gray, Alana O'Loughlin and Matoisha Kalepo round out an all pathways interchange. And they play out at Kellyville on Sunday. And they take on, it's Penrith this week? Has that been changed? That is South Sydney's colours on... Hang on. I'm looking at the League Unlimited team list portal because they tend to be the most consistent for getting it out. We take on the Penrith Panthers, with South Sydney's colours on LU for whatever reason. Yeah, that is how the Eels line up in this grade, chasing 3 straight wins, Craig. So they went 0-2 in the first 2 weeks, being so close against a couple of very good teams there. And they've since turned it around with 2 wins and a chance to go over that 500 margin.
Yeah, and I think their win last week against the Knights was pretty good, because I think the Knights were undefeated coming into that game. I'm sure they were
one. Yeah, no, you're right. There were 2 undefeated teams, I believe, and it was them and the Steelers. So the Eels knocked them over. It was the first loss there. Steelers remain undefeated, a team that beat the Eels on the bell. So results hadn't really shown how strong they've been playing, and finally they're got some parity in the season and a chance to improve this week against the Penrith Panthers, who come into this game with a record of 1 win, 1 draw, and 2 losses.
Mary, so much young talent coming through in that Eels team, in the Harvey Norman. It's amazing to see them. 1 minute they're in Tasha Gale, and the next they're playing open age ladies.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to see, Craig. And I think I listened to you and John talk so fondly about, young men that come through our pathway. And we're finally starting to get the opportunity for the same young women. I'll use Dylan Brown as an example for you, Sixties. I know what a big fan you are of him and how you've had to, you've had the opportunity to watch him grow up. You'll have the same opportunity with some of these women's players. And I love how focused we are on that pathway. It seems consistent again. It seems consistent across the men's and women's pathways at the moment, and it's great to see. And these are stars of the future that we'll be seeing in our NRLW team very, very soon.
Mary, it's something that we've been proud of, that because of the way that we cover junior rugby league, that we get to see the young players, and to now be able to see it with the women. And one of the joys that we get of covering the female pathways is how appreciative and how much the women enjoy being rugby league players, like that, and being a part and being on a journey, connecting with fans. It's when you get to go and watch women's pathways, you feel, and it's not to say you don't feel this way with the male pathways as well, because we certainly have felt this way, but you can just see how important the game is to these young female players. Like they embrace the fact that in many ways they're pioneering rugby league for girls of the future. And it's just exciting to see.
I take that responsibility very seriously, Craig. And I think the other thing is they don't take anything the club gives them for granted either. So I remember hearing Martha Matayele talk earlier this year. She's a very experienced athlete, but this year was the first time she'd ever had her own locker. And that meant a great deal to her. So I think that new centre of excellence is really a game changer for the club. And everyone here knows how much I love women's footy, and speaking to the players and how grateful they are and humble and willing to give back. They see themselves as the custodians of the women's game. And I really hope that never changes.
Yeah, absolutely true. Well, John, I think we're at that point where we've covered everything in Eels news. We're up to your musical interlude.
Yeah, look, Craig, I don't like to cheat too much on the musical interlude and try and play by the rules and whatnot, but sometimes events shine a spotlight on what you should be doing, and I didn't have to look too far and wide for this one, because the Parramatta Eels, they are coming back to paradise, which does give us a fantastic theme for the song choice. But I did have to go out of my way and find a high infidelity version of this song, so it made sense, and I present to you a bit of a, I suppose, in vogue or topical Coldplay. And just a reminder for anyone going to Combat on Thursday with their other significant other, make sure you're not hugging them from behind while the camera's on you.
Yeah, that was a bit of fun, not for the people caught, but for everyone else in the
Why
world.
did they react that way? Why did they react that way? Like, no one knows who they are.
Exactly.
Until they gave the game away instantly, and then everyone's like, "Oh, we saw something we shouldn't have seen."
Anyway, let's leave that one for another podcast.
Okay, so the NRL news is really all about signings, departures, retirements, injuries. It is big on that this week. So let's plough through some of this. So on the re-signing front, Jahrome Hughes, Gagai, and we'll talk a bit more about Hughes in a moment, but that is significant because he's already talking about making sure his mates down at the Storm also extend with him. So I guess he's as crucial as you can get for the Storm in ensuring that their spine remains as strong as it is. So
there's a pretty clear big three when it comes to halfbacks in the code right now, isn't it? Obviously, Nathan Cleary, Parramatta's own Mitchell Moses, and Jahrome Hughes, the reigning Dally M medalist. And there was a lot of talk about what the Melbourne Storm are going to do, how they're going to keep him. They're going to look at Jonah Pezet, which is a big follow-up question. It's a no-brainer, like the Eels of Mitchell Moses. If you've got a top three halfback, you pay him, you lock him up, and you build your team around him. And that does lead us to Jonah Pezet, Craig, who NRL 360 host and unrelated party to Jonah Pezet, Brafe and Nasta, floated a very interesting idea tonight on the show.
Yeah, a loan option, so that he doesn't have to necessarily leave the system, but he can start to develop a bit further playing elsewhere. Harry Grant did it, Mary.
Well, they've got the chance to do the funniest thing possible, to break the Tigers' hearts twice in a row, give him another talented spine player for a year, and then take him away. It seems like Jonah Pezet, I mean, it's not surprising, is completely bought into that Melbourne Storm culture. I don't think he wants to depart the club, although he is starving for opportunities to play first grade. Has been named on the interchange bench in our game. We didn't mention that, Craig, but that is something to consider this game as well. But yeah, loan deal, certainly a possibility. It makes a lot of sense for a young playmaker too, doesn't it? I mean, you think about what happened with Ethan Sanders. If the Parramatta Eels have been able to organise a loan deal for Ethan Sanders, keep him around for another year, give him a chance to play elsewhere, he comes back into a situation where Dylan Brown had departed, maybe he just walks straight back into the number 6 jersey for Parramatta.
And you know what, Mary, if he had stuck around this year, he would have played a lot of first grade.
A lot of first grades, yeah.
And isn't that just the challenge of it all and why a loan system might work? I mean, I think of it like at my work where we have secondments. You can go try out another little team for a while, see how it feels, develop your skills. And then if you don't like that team, you go back to your old one and continue as you were. It's a good opportunity, I think, especially for young players to get an opportunity to play more consistent footy. And gosh, I think back to last year and some of the players we let go and what might have been a little bit different for some of them if they'd stuck around.
Yeah, it's those sort of sliding door moments. Even when I look back and think when Jake Arthur left partway through 23, and literally the moment that he left, I think we had the issues with Dylan Brown getting his suspension, and then there was Mitch Moses' injury, and he probably would have played first grade for the rest of the season there. And yeah, I guess that's the football gods, isn't it? The way the universe works is that someone like Ethan Sanders has spent the majority of the season in reserve grade, whereas if he had stuck around, he probably would have played the majority of the season in first grade this year. And who knows what may have developed for him as a Jason Ryles player. But you'd have to think with Jamal Fogarty moving on next year, he's got to be in the mix for a bit more regular first grade next year. So now moving on, the opposite of this, John, the free to leave, Trey Mooney, Beau Fermor, Khan-Pereira, Chevy Stewart. It's quite a list of players that are now free to go out there in the market. Would any of those interest us, do you think, Mary? Like, I'm looking at that and I'm seeing at least one that would interest me.
That is it the same as mine? Who's yours, Craig?
Well, I like a lot of pace, and Khan-Pereira's got a lot of pace.
He's my one too, Craig. And I think the part that I find the weirdest about that is why that conversation is happening when there's so much upheaval at that club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, who knows who's going to be coaching that team next year? Why would you be letting a player like that go? I find that really weird.
There must be, like, he just must not be ticking the boxes as a rugby league player, because the level of pace that he's got is a rarity. And in exposed form as a neutral, so I'm not watching him play in their lower grade setup where their teams are playing in Q Cup. I'm not seeing him play every game for the Titans that he's played this year, but he hasn't been selected lately. Every time that I have seen him, he threatens with his pace. You can't create pace out of nothing. You've either got it or you haven't.
And we didn't have it for so long, Craig.
Yeah. So I guess if you recruited someone like him and he was a genuine chance to play first grade as an option, would you then be looking at Zach Lomax goes back to centre? Are you looking at the Fox only stays for another year and you sell it to this bloke that there's a long-term future at the club? I don't know, but it's just that level of pace is so rare. And I just think when it's available, you take a chance at it. That's just how I'd view it. John, what about you? Is there any there that would interest you?
I got to take or leave Khan-Pereira. I think he's got a couple of issues in his game defensively and with some errors that wouldn't preclude him from being a recruitment target for mine, but it does offset the pace a little bit. Same with someone like Tyrell Sloan, where I think there is an opportunity cost of picking them. I look at those players, and Chevy Stewart was once the hottest commodity when it came to the juniors. I don't think he still want to be going to a club where he gets a chance to play number one. Not getting that at Parramatta, because if it's not Zaire Yongi, it's Josh Papali. So he'll have to go somewhere else. The other two, I guess, Trey Mooney, former Parramatta prospect, always great to bring one home. Handy forward, playing good football on reserve grade, has not been able to get a consistent look into Canberra, and has been a subject of some rumours below the surface about being sort of leaving for the last 18 months, and every time Canberra's found a way to persuade him. Obviously, that's now reached a breaking point. I wouldn't be against a reunion there. I don't think he's anywhere near a superstar, but I think he's a good prospect still. And then Beau Fermor, I've got a bit of time for Beau Fermor. He does have an error in his game. What is concerning is the injuries, but he's a pretty good wide running back rower. It feels like there's a bit of a Melbourne Storm player there, maybe a Ryan Hoffman, I guess. But yeah, none of them strike me as like, oh my God, go out and get the contract fresh off the press. But I think there are a couple of guys you could look at. But our previous discussion centering around guys like Kalama Matangi and Fa'asua Mala'awi is where I would be looking to spend our premium resources in terms of recruitment.
I think that's absolutely the priority, John. Totally agree.
Yeah, and I guess there's always that temptation to look at players that are available and go, oh yeah, we should chase this one or chase that one. But you always have to remember that in taking someone from outside, there's an opportunity cost for someone that's inside the club. And you have to weigh up, would the signature of one potentially lead to the departure of another, especially if they see their pathway blocked in some way. So it's an interesting juggling act that the teams have to go through. and I guess especially clubs that would classify themselves as development clubs as well, which obviously the Eels do. Apart from that,
breaking news, by the way, Jack Whiten has been found guilty of that shoulder charge. So he will miss our upcoming game, I believe. It was a 4-game suspension. He failed in changing the categorization of a tackle from a shoulder charge to a dangerous contact, and also failed in his bid to get it downgraded. We play South Sydney. Yes, we play South Sydney 2 weeks up. So we've got Cowboys after this week and then South Sydney the week after. So he will not be playing against Parramatta.
I'm not sorry about that.
Oh,
I think he's a dangerous player.
Yeah,
so
well, they haven't got many good players left right now because of injuries, and he's probably one of the few.
They really haven't got anyone.
Yeah.
It's actually quite shocking what's happened to South Sydney, and I could honestly do a whole podcast on them and just the whole Lewis Dodd thing. I found that so baffling and so fascinating. But this isn't a South Sydney podcast, so
we'll be low on the compassion stakes when it comes to time
not at all.
discussing South Sydney.
God.
Townsend's retired, John.
Yeah, he announced it on socials today. A bit of an inglorious end for a player that I suppose went from the premiership highs to very quickly the lows once he got out of Cronulla. Went to North Queensland, couldn't quite put it all together there, and then since he joined the Roosters and been an afterthought, really, being surpassed by Sandon Smith and especially Hugo Zavala. And now at Walker's back, he is very much surplus to requirements, and he's hung up the boots. So, I mean, still a great career. Can't fault him, and he retires having done most of what a rugby league player wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish Chad all the best. It's been a delight watching him, and he's always been very gracious towards me. I had him on Ladies Who League a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty confident that he'll find his way after football, maybe in the media. He's actually a smart player that's really applied himself in that space, said yes to every opportunity, and I think is prized for a career after football.
Yeah, I would agree with you there as well, Mary. You can see the players that look comfortable behind the mic or in front of a camera. He's one of those. As you said, he's a student of the game. There are players there who they play the game because it's their way of earning an income. They're not necessarily passionate about being a rugby league player or watching games other than the ones that they have to watch. But then you've got that group that target an NRL media career, or they want to be at the top of their game, the peak of their game, and they keep a media, like a library, on other players, other teams. They go that extra mile in their preparation. When they appear in the media, they do their research. They have something valuable to say. He's one of those, without question. John, now injuries.
Yeah.
Hughes out for the rest of the regular season. Olakau'atu is out for the season.
And that one I missed on the run sheet was Connor Tracy, 3 weeks out with an abdominal injury. So a lot of carnage this week. It feels like been a lot of carnage all year. You mentioned South Sydney, Mary, Parramatta, South Sydney, the Roosters. There's been a number of teams that have been absolutely incapacitated by injuries. But, yeah, how much does this shape the battle for the minor premiership? How much does this shape seeding for the finals? How much does this shape Manly's chances of making the finals? Big injuries. I suppose we go through one by one. Jahrome Hughes, we get the first look at what Melbourne look like post Jahrome Hughes. They've got Tyron Wishart filling in at halfback this week. And obviously Tyron's a fantastic utility. But Jahrome Hughes, reigning Dalian medalist, that is a big blow for Melbourne. If he's back for the finals, they'll find a way. They'll be fine. But really opens the door for Canberra to, 15 wins for Canberra? So they've already got a nice buffer. I would say that even though the Dogs have the win advantage on Melbourne will probably the biggest threat to Canberra's minor premiership chances. And, yeah, this really – it doesn't seal it for Canberra. Still work to do, but that's big. That's big.
Yeah.
John, it's pretty favourable. So I actually had Canberra sealing the minor premiership from a couple of weeks ago. I think their draw home is quite gentle.
And
that's not being critical.
No, but
of
that is
them.
that's one of the big things when it comes to making these big marches is injury luck and good draws. And you look at that top 3, 4. The Raiders and Bulldogs have had great draws. Melbourne generally get a pretty good draw because they don't play Melbourne. That's just how it works when you're one of the best teams. And the Warriors have had a reasonable draw this year. So, yeah, that certainly plays a part. For the Dogs, no Connor Tracy for 3 weeks. They've got a couple of options. Some people have been saying kick Mac Burton the fullback, put Stephen Crichton the fullback. You can put a number of wing or young options there. Who actually, I never even looked at their team. Who they named the fullback this week? They play here, West Tigers. And the Dogs have named Jacob Kiraz. So that was the other option there, was to put Kiraz to fullback. And they've kept the young gun Rinakama on one wing and Nari Tuala on the other. So I suppose there's your answer. Jacob Kiraz will be the deputy fullback for the next few weeks.
Yeah. John, when it comes to these teams, I think the Dogs have done a pretty good job of navigating injuries or suspensions all season. So I think they'll be fine. The Storm, they're a real systems team. So it's always been next player up, and Wishart's a pretty good replacement to be able to bring in.
Pezet on the bench too, so they could redeploy Wishart somewhere else and bring Pezet in to be that frontline halfback. So very interesting. But Manly probably the biggest losers here because the other two teams are set to get their player back at some point. Hamola Alofiana, who has not enjoyed probably the most productive year for a player of his incredible ability. Still a good year though. But is that the definitely on Manly season? They just got trounced by the Bulldogs. They're still in the 8, right? If I just pull up the ladder here. Manly, no, they're in 9th. So they actually dropped out on.
They're falling out,
yeah.
John.
So
Yeah, they've just fallen out.
And they've got. You look at the teams they're chasing.
Let's just make a call. Let's just make a call right now. I go, no, Manly don't make.
They're chasing the Panthers, Broncos, Sharks, and Dolphins. That is stiff competition.
Correct.
And they've got the Roosters on the heels.
Gone. Yeah. Mary, you're going gone as well?
I think the Roosters gone as well.
There you go. So 2 big calls from Mary.
Did you smile when you said that Manly's gone? Is that a smile on your face?
Look, to be honest, I'd rather be saying Canterbury are gone or maybe Penrith. But look, I unfortunately don't have that luxury.
Yeah, like a bad stink, Penrith just won't go away. They're knocking on the doors.
And of course, we
4.
played them back in a form, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Unfortunately.
Now before we get to live chat questions, last thing to talk about was the actual demotion of a referee. So Belinda Sharp has apparently been shafted back to is it to the sideline?
To the sideline, correct? Yes.
Okay, I don't know whether that's necessarily being demoted because you tend to see the refs and the sideline officials rotating roles anyway. And the media were talking about it was because of this lopsided count. Hello? I think we've
this
seen
is
a
the
few
thing.
lopsided counts.
Yeah, I think what I find so weird about this 160s is that I really don't like to criticize referees. I really don't. I think it's up to teams whether they win or lose. But there have been some calls this year that have been baffling. Even if we look at the offside calls from the weekend, I absolutely think that Reece Walsh was offside, but I think the wrong call was made in the Roosters game. And like putting my Parramatta hat on when Gideon Katonga was the subject of a hip drop, we lose him for the rest of the season. No penalty. Like, what is it in particular that has pushed Belinda Sharp to the sideline?
Yeah, it's interesting because look, I think a lot of refs have struggled. I think Belinda has struggled, if I'm honest, but so have I think Klein's had an atrocious year, and that's not with a Parramatta hat on. I think he's just had an atrocious year. And there's been a couple of others who have struggled as well. It's in one sense, I do want to see match officials accountable for their performances. And is it possible that the rugby league that rugby league supporters should get to know why a referee has lost their spot, or should it be kept confidential? I'll throw that question to you, Mary. Do you think we should be informed why a referee has lost their spot, or should it just be kept between the referee and the referee's coach / director, whatever that position is that makes the decision?
Hey, Craig, there is a case for it to be confidential. Do you know what I mean? We have no idea what's going on with Belinda. There may be another reason. But I think the refereeing has just been so inconsistent. I think the way we apply the rules changes every week.
Yes.
Like, I genuinely don't know if someone gets hit in the head. I don't know if that's a penalty, a sin bin, like, I don't know anymore. So it's very difficult to sort of understand what's going on in that world right now. And I think that only sort of adds to the intrigue when someone does get moved to the sideline.
I think one of the things, Mary, that I'd be critical of, and look, I've been critical of the refs this year. I don't think I've been unfairly critical, because I've spoken about how referees in this day and age are so much better than what I saw in the 70s and 80s, where there wasn't the microscope that could be put on them, and you would see some of the worst possible calls. Like, I don't want to dive too deep into it, because there are probably referees from that era that are still alive, and you don't want to besmirch their character. But you'd shake your head at some of the calls that were made. Now, mind you, they didn't have the benefit of mic'd up touch judges or someone in the box that could maybe tip to them about what was happening. But you look at the referees these days, first of all, they're athletes in their own right. The preparation that they're able to put into matches, is it beneficial? You would think it would be, but then I wonder whether they overly analyse the teams that they're playing rather than just going out there and officiating. Have they got a tip sheet that they look at for each of the teams, who to watch for? Because sometimes the way they start the game and they pull up one team for something or another, it feels like they've gone in with a predetermined idea about how a particular team is going to play. And especially when you see some of the early calls that might be made in a game, and then and where it seems like they're pulling up one team and not another for a particular type of offence, and you think, hello, it's almost like they've judged this on a form sheet. So I do get concerned about that. But this year, the last few years, I think the NRL's made it harder for refs.
Agree.
Yeah, rule changes, different interpretations. The rule mightn't change, but there'll be a different interpretation. There'll be crackdowns.
The game is faster than ever, but it's the same amount of eyes on the ball and on the teams as it was before. I've argued that you could have like two sets of touchline officials on both sides and a secondary main official on the field with the main official just to police the ruck and forward passes, because that is how fast the game is, how much teams push the line as well. And you're asking just 4 officials and the bunker 2 who can intervene in certain capacity to try and adjudicate a code that is just, it is such a huge ask. And like you said, 6 against, rule changes, crackdowns, interpretations, we can't settle. And it makes it a near impossible task for these poor officials to try and stay on top of it. And the fact that we only complain so much, I suppose, is testament to the fact they are still doing a reasonable job as much as we do gripe.
Yeah, they were talking on 360 tonight. I think might have been Bulldog Richie that it's starting to get out of control with the criticism on field of referees, the players that go charging at refs, getting them questioning their decisions when it's only supposed to be the captains, and that at the very least it's a bad look at the moment with how players are responding or demanding penalties or demanding a change in a call. You would have thought that the captain's challenge made it a process that could be adhered to, where a ref could go, no, there's the process, don't come at me. If you haven't got a challenge, let's see you. That's
Yeah.
end of story. Yeah, and that's if I was a ref, that's how I'd be. Like if a team had blown their challenge and they were complaining about a call, I'd be tempted to say, if you had a challenge left, might be different, mate.
Other thing I would say, Craig, is I think it's always rich when the media are critical in that sense. Because I think the media play a massive role in how fans interact and think about the referees. You've got some people in commentary who I think don't know the rules. And you'll see lazy commentary from time to time as well. I think Dan Ganane is a very good commentator, so I'm not picking on him, but I just really remember on Friday night when the call was made about Reece Walsh, he said the bunker has decided the game.
No, Reece Walsh decided the game. Yeah,
That's what I mean. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? The bunker didn't decide the game. The bunker adjudicated, as it does, and made the right call. But I think when you say things like the bunker decided the game, that naturally sort of puts conflict into the way fans see and view that decision.
And that's probably the thing that demonstrates how some people in the media will manipulate supporters. Maybe manipulate's the wrong word, but
yeah, the Prince of PTC's in chat saying pretty much that tune. Anyone from the Daily Telegraph is extremely hypocritical, complaining about referee criticism. Yes, because they build it up. It's classic tall poppy syndrome, isn't it? Where you build something up, or you create the fuel for something, and then go the other way or light it up. And yeah, they complain about referee calls more than anyone else, but then also use that as fodder to say, hey, don't complain about the referees, it's getting out of hand. It's like, well, hello.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that it's always, you see the media milk a whole lot of controversies, but they'll go one point, they'll take it down a certain narrative, and then next week they'll take it down the other narrative. And it's almost, you can almost feel that they're just milking different issues for all that they're worth. Just continually, they'll keep something alive for as long as they possibly can until the next thing comes that they can talk about. And then they'll take different points of view, and then you wonder about vested interests sometimes with the stance that particular journalists will take. Yeah, let's just go for the average punter covering the game like we all do, because we don't have vested interests, do we? We don't have any biases. Well, at least if we do, we're wearing it on our sleeves.
At least they're declared. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on this. Like, sorry, Braith and Nasta sitting there on NRL 360 making comments about player agreements and negotiations. It's completely inappropriate. The role that Phil Gould plays at the Bulldogs, again, completely inappropriate. I wrote a whole article about his conduct during the Lockie Galvin thing. Conflicts exist everywhere, but I would argue that many are managed very poorly in the NRL.
Yes. So, yeah, as you say, we could literally have an entire podcast on this topic, and I think you've nailed a couple of them just then, because good old Braith, he's there and he's saying, look, I really don't want to say too much. However, bang, 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 like with two players tonight, with both Pezet and also Lachlan Ilias. So, and with that second one, really getting stuck into the coach about the non-selection of his player. So, and then it almost feels like when he starts saying about how he's had to worry about his well-being away from the field because of non-selection, you're thinking, wouldn't that be like confidential stuff? Should you be talking about that? Or have you had a discussion prior to this saying, listen, tonight I might have a bit of a chat about your well-being and how it's being affected by your non-selection. What do you think? So, yeah, I agree with you entirely there, Mary. John, any other late-breaking news before we hit the live chat?
We mentioned Pappenhausen talking with the NRL, the Rugby 360 guys. That looks about it. Dan Gaggo, we mentioned, extended 1 year of the Knights. That looks to be the latest happenings from the NRL. So we can move on to chat questions, and this goes back a fair bit, but sort of relating to that Jason Ryles talk, Michael Formosa was saying that Matty Johns mentioned that Parramatta will win a comp under Jason Ryles, and that sort of extends to Andrew Voss, the radio broadcaster and sort of podcaster versus Andrew Voss, the commentator, is such a two different beast situation when he hasn't got the producer in his ear sort of telling him to hype it up too much. So much more balanced when he's in his radio role compared to being a Fox caller. But he had a great segment on Jason Ryles and how Ryles could be his coach of the year, even though it's going to be Ricky Stewart. He said Ricky Stewart's the obvious coach of the year, and that's fair. But Jason Ryles deserves his flowers too, and mentioned a lot of things that he wasn't at liberty to share because he was invited into the inner sanctum of the Parramatta Eels and had a wonderful trip there, and obviously was very impressed. And look, Ryles' sort of pedigree is stretching far and wide really quickly among neutrals and among all the pundits, which is great to see. Mike Fleet was on top of that Keon Kalama-Tangi rumour, so that one's a little bit out of date, obviously. But Fletcher Johnson follows up on the Keon possibility, saying, could we see Keon more as a prop considering he's playing his best football there? And could we see Jack Williams become more of a strike second rower? I think that is a part of the value of Keon Kalama-Tangi, is that versatility, the ability to play edge or middle. It certainly makes him, to me, a high-profile recruit or a high-value recruit. What about you guys? You like that positional versatility? Where would he play if he was a Parramatta Eel?
I'll let you answer that first, Mary, because I need to get my thoughts together on this.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, John, about that versatility. And I mean, I might as well take it back to my favourite subject, which is the women's game. I've noticed that the players are extremely versatile. So if you look at that New South Wales Blues women's team that did so well at the start of the year, part of their success was because they picked players that could play almost anywhere. I think that ends up being a real benefit to coaches. So it puts another tick in the Keon box for me. Got to think about where I'd want him to play. 60s, have you decided yet?
See, when I'm thinking about the Eels back row, I'm a massive fan of Jack Williams and what he brings. And I think Gideon Katonga could be anything. Like, I really think he could be anything. And then throw into the mix someone like Charlie Geimer, who I think has arrived as an NRL player now. And he brings a defensive decisiveness now to his game. Like, he's gone up, I reckon, 2 levels in terms of his defence. And it's not just the numbers, it's just the way he chops players down. And I think there's 3 players, before I even start thinking about someone like Kelmer, who has, when he's been on the field, has actually gone pretty well this year. You know what? I wouldn't care where Jason Ryles played him if we got Keon. There's my sit on the fence answer, because I think he could probably play both roles effectively. I guess then it becomes the balance of the team. And for me, I really like Jack Williams' leg speed on an edge, and I like as I said, Gideon, really, he's such a threat. Before he was injured the other week against Penrith, he was busting the first tackle.
Yeah,
every
against
single
Penrith, who were back to their best. It wasn't Penrith of the early season, and it's such a shame to have him had his back end of the season robbed, because who knows what he could have gotten to, or that point he could have arrived to at the end of the season. But it is what it is. John O'Black was tacking onto that Ryles conversation, says it seems like Ryles likes rewarding players who are putting in the work. Names don't matter. It's who is performing the best. Obviously, Sean Russell comes to mind immediately in that capacity. He's held his place in the team over Bailey Simonson, who you would argue is the more fancied of the 2 players. And Bailey didn't do much wrong in the opportunities he's got, but Sean's form has been rewarded by his coach.
Yeah, and we've probably seen at the same time, though Will was out for some weeks, his form either side of suspension was starting to look really good. And I guess Jason Ryles would look at someone like Will Penisini and go, look, he's a real confidence player. If he's striking form, I've got to keep picking him. And but it's hard to leave Bailey out at the moment. It really actually, for mine, it came down to a choice between Bailey and Will Penisini. I think Sean Russell had positioned himself as being probably the number one centre at the club at the moment.
I think also you've seen a real bond as well formed between Sean Russell and Josh Adokar. I mean, I just remember when Josh Adokar scored and Sean Russell
the big celebration
grabbed him and just shook him. It was fantastic to see. And I think earlier in the year we were seeing those combinations struggle a little bit, getting to know each other. But I think they've really flourished. And Sixties, I do agree with you. When I saw Sean Russell's name and not Bailey's, I was like, interesting call from Jason Ryles. But after that try from Sean on the weekend and his continued efforts, it's really hard to leave him out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know we've got onto this when we were talking about Keon and where we would play him, but it's, I just think you've got to keep backing what Jason Ryles is seeing with the players and trust that when he makes a call on positions or players that are going to be used, that you just have to back him. He hasn't been wrong this season. So,
and following up on that sort of centre conversation, Josh Randall's in chat asking, do we think that Will's uptick in form is due to having real pressure for spots under him for once? Obviously, Will was not at his best earlier this year, although there were elements of his game that were good, but couldn't put it all together. Had a really good game prior to the suspension, came back with a really good game. What do you put it down to? Getting a bit of rest, bit of that iron sharpens iron mentality? What caused Will to get back to his best in such a short turnaround?
Look, I don't know, John. He had an outstanding pre-season. Like I think he won just about every shirt that they had on offer.
Tour de France kit that they had,
Yeah, look, he was always winning one of the awards most weeks. And when I wrote the summary of the pre-season, and I think I named him as the player of the pre-season, that was how good he was. And I thought he was just primed for this being
a real breakout,
his best season. Yeah, his best season ever. And it was disappointing to see how he started. But it's interesting. I think if the Eels had a better run with some of the closer games or iced some games that they should have, he might have been coming in, like timing his run perfectly when it came to form, if they were coming into finals football. And you do want players hitting their best at the back end of the season. So I think he was heading towards that. Now, to your point, having someone breathing down his neck, to have a Bailey Simonson in New South Wales Cup breathing down your neck, he does have to produce. So I think it's a number of factors as well. So, what do you think, Mary?
I think competition for spots is important and necessary in any football team. And I think I can't remember who said it in chat, but just that point about Jason Ryles picking based on effort, I think would put not fear into any player, but push any player to produce their best week in, week out. And it's something I love about what Jason Ryles has done.
Yeah.
Good responses.
Okay, John, any other?
Couple of quick questions. Gallagher was in chat asking a question, I suppose, in regards to your talk about the head of performance moving on. He's saying, can we get Hayden Knowles back? We're going to find out, obviously, what the Eels are going to do in regards to the head of athletic conditioning and replacing Blair Mills in the future. But would a reunion of Hayden Knowles be on the cards, Craig, or the club heading in another direction, you reckon?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they advertised recently for to fill that position. So, well, I think the more interesting question will be, will it come from rugby league or as in the case with
they've
Blair.
shown once that they're happy to go cross code, so it wouldn't be outside the realms of our reason to do it again because the results have been bad.
Yeah, well, look, you've got players on staff who have this year a background in union and in AFL, and who knows, it might be the same next year. They might again go for someone with a union background or an AFL background. It's, I think, where we went down that past in the past with Lockie Wilmot, there was also the NRL changed their rules and their interpretation of their rules. It was
a terrible set of circumstances for inexperienced, unseasoned athletic condition to come into the rugby league space. Yeah.
Yeah, and just as a reminder for people, that was the 2018 season, and Lockie stayed there as well for 2019. But in 2018, he prepared them in the pre-season where he stripped a lot of weight off them, and they were going for being, I guess, more aerobically
he would have been much better in the six again era, right? than,
So, yes, he would have been better now, and the NRL had the refs blowing the pee out of the whistle.
Yeah, a lot of stoppages.
At the start of the season, so it was just stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. So it benefited all the teams that had big forwards at the start of that particular year because they were just getting a break. And the Eels were just getting trampled over the top of because all the players had lost a lot of weight, going on long-distance runs and just non-stop with from that conditioning perspective, and the lightweight version of the Eels just got trampled over that season. So, it'll be interesting, John. I guess we will find out in the not-too-distant future because pre-season starts at the start of November, which isn't really that far away. So someone has to be in place. Yeah, any other questions?
Last couple of things in relation to the referees and the media. Alex Wallace, a good question. Should we go back to the two ref system since the game's a lot faster now? I'm not opposed. I mentioned you could go as many as 6 officials on the field, and I think it wouldn't be out of place having those two sideline officials on the touchlines calling out offsides and forward passes explicitly, having that pocket referee to help police the ruck and all the other grubbiness that goes on in the game without overcalling the main referee when it comes to the actual flow of the game. So I'm on board for an expansion of the officiating system, but that means spending money. And that's one thing that people hate doing, people in power, is spending money when it comes to other spots. So that'd be a big investment in the NRL too.
The NRL keeps talking about how much money they have and how plush they are with money. What better investment than the referees? And not only and then it also means that there's a greater pool. So there are more people that get that opportunity, which I think would be great. Yeah,
John, it always seemed crazy to me that they got rid of the second referee when they brought in all those rules that were going to make it harder for one referee to control. It never made any sense, and you knew it was just an economics decision. So, and the last question.
Matthias Laskic was in chat saying that the media play both sides. Someone told to stoke the fire about the rest and then leap in to protect them. I was leaping to protect them. It's the same with criticism or unfair criticism of some players and then jumping to saying we shouldn't bully them. Yeah. Media
so
absolutely, they will absolutely play both sides, no doubt about it. And unfortunately, it's a proven formula that engagement is driven by negativity and fostering negative opinions, or doing the positive work that you do is only to build up those negative columns because that's where you get your clicks. And it's a really nasty little algorithm thing that goes on with the media, but it works, and that's why they keep doing it.
And you know I
would just challenge. Oh, sorry, Sixties. I was just going to say I would challenge everyone listening and paying attention to vote with your clicks. Think about what you're clicking on and what you're engaging with. I'll use an example from some of my writing on the Raw. The Raw loves when I get comments. If I write an NRLW preview, that gets way less comments than when I have a small poke at rugby union. I had a small poke at rugby union for putting one of the British Lions games on the same night as State of Origin. I think that was one of my best articles for the year, and it was just incredibly frustrating, to be honest.
Question from Mary as well, quickly from Alex Wallace. if you could sign any NRLW player to bolster the Parramatta Eels, who would it be?
Oh, gosh, that is such a tough question.
It's only the tough questions here from our
I
readers,
know.
viewers.
That's actually such a great question. Can you two talk amongst yourselves for a little while I think? So I want someone a little bit young.
Okay,
You know what I
I'll let
mean?
Mary think on that one while we cover another topic. Peter Z is talking about the Saudi elite rugby competition, which is Rugby 360. We mentioned it with Ryan Pappenhausen. He's put the question there. With the money on offer, will we expect NRL players to move over to the other code? Absolutely. I think that is a real concern. They're talking, I mean, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's been linked to them on $1 million a year. Was the rumour that was going around last week. I don't think you can sleep on this at all. I think that a lot of high-profile players, I mean, Nathan Cleary could be someone. He's a player that's been linked to rugby union as like that final frontier of challenge for him for quite some time. I don't know. You can't sleep on that for all at all, sorry.
I think they would have to come up with incredible money for the highest caliber NRL players. So Nathan Cleary, I reckon, to get him to switch codes, because he'd be on a good wicket at Penrith, you'd have to be talking probably 1.6 or higher to tempt him to go and do something like that. Same with Munster. Sam Burgess is a great example of going to another code, being well rewarded to go to a code, but getting no joy out of playing there. And I remember him saying that he would come off the field after a rugby union game, playing at centre, being told he'd had a great game after making 3 or 4 tackles in the game, and thinking to himself, basically, I've just played shit. I've done nothing, and I'm being praised for it, and just missing rugby league so much. And I thought that really is the case. It would have to be a purely financial decision to go to a code that's a breakaway competition in a rival code, and you don't know whether you're necessarily going to get the support. So they might be playing in front of small crowds. It might be just a TV sport. Their passion is not going to be the same. So they'd have to be well remunerated. That'd be my take on it, John. I'd be stunned if that competition took off.
My take on it is that I find it honestly truly embarrassing that really the only way that rugby union can get relevance in this country is by talking about which rugby league players they're going to poach. That is the only time that rugby union is in the headlines. And I wish that they would find something else to focus on, because I think they would, even if they took our 20 best players, I still think the talent pool in rugby league is just so much wider and deeper. And I do have an answer on that other question. I was thinking about it, and I feel like we're pretty strong in the forwards. I'd like a bit more experience in our back line, so I think I'd struggle to go past someone like Isabel Kelly.
I saw Kelly's name in chat. Millie Boyle was the other one that popped up a couple of times as a
Millie
difference
Boyle
maker in the pack.
Sorry, Millie Elliott is
Millie Elliott near
Maisie.
Boyle, yeah.
She's obviously taking the year off this year to grow her family, so I'm not sure how she'll come back. But if the likes of like Sammy Bromner is anything to go by, or Corbin McGregor, she'll be back in full flight. But Isabel Kelly would probably be my pick.
Yeah, so good suggestions there from chat. Great pick from Mary. I see, Josh is on top there. Sammy's not at Spring Chicken. I don't think he's a good recruit for anyone in this regard, although he was a phenomenal player for many years. But I think on that note, that's about it for chat. Some great questions there. I don't have one last check on breaking NRL news. No, nothing new coming up. So, it's a good place to wrap it up. Many thanks to everyone in chat for the fantastic support tonight. Many thanks to Mary Kay for sharing damn near 2 hours of her time with us, yapping about football. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Craig, for another good show.
You guys.
It's always great to have you.
Can we see that coffee mug again, Mary?
There we go.
Hey.
Can you see my little Reggie bobblehead in the background as well?
Yes. But yes, thanks all around to everyone here involved. Thanks to our sponsors, Parramatta Leagues Club and Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn Rowan and Parramatta. And it's been a fantastic show. A lot of news that we covered today. Massive happenings in the code, big happenings for the Parramatta Reels. Have to keep on top of that rumour in the back row, see if it eventuates. Very interesting stuff. But yes, thank you to everyone that has liked and subscribed. We will see you in the next episode, which will be our preview podcast, which we will record tomorrow because it's a Thursday turnaround. We got no time to breathe out at CommBank Stadium in 2 sleeps. And on that note, I will hand it over to you, big fella, for the actual proper sign-off.
Go, you mighty Eels.